Hello and welcome to the latest cast in the Spy Party's Masters Championship. It is also the penultimate cast. The championship itself is happening tomorrow, but first, we have the bronze match. This is the match that determines third place. Anticlimactic, you might think, under normal circumstances, but normal circumstances these are not. The SMC has the largest prize pool in the game's history, so large, in fact, that the difference between third and fourth, determined in just a bit, is $100, which all by itself would be one of the larger prizes awarded in the game's history. And thankfully, I don't have to do this on my own. I am Warning Track, and I'm joined casting-wise by Scout. Hello, Scout.
Hello, hello.
And Corvus is violating basic physics by sitting at both the host and analyst tables simultaneously.
Hey, Track, and hello, everyone.
Yes, this is bronze match, as I mentioned. It is first to 11, similar to the semifinals matches, of which both these players have already played and already lost by a score of 9 to 11 each. Fair to say they were probably, if not both the favorites, certainly very plausibly could have advanced to the finals. Any combination would have made sense, and this is the one we ended up with. Let's talk a little bit about that bracket.
Yeah, so we've got the tournament structure here. Both of these players, Rav and Nebula, qualified directly to the Champions Round Robin. They are both Cup champions this season. We have the Winter Cup and Summer Cup champions both representing in this match today. And you can see they had to get out of groups that contained some real titans. Ligorov, Janine, and Lev were their opponents down there in the bottom group. The championship match will be Opie Wrights versus Mean York, and as Track mentioned, we will see that tomorrow. But today, we're focused on Rav and Nebula, and we're going to talk just a little bit about these players. So much ink has been spilled, so much air has been used on these players. They have appeared in so many high-profile tournaments, but let's just recap on Rav a little bit. Winter Cup champion in groups went 7-9 versus Nebula, 10-6 versus Ligorov, and 12-4 versus Lev. And then, as Track mentioned, lost the semifinal match 9-11 versus Opie Wrights in an absolute roller coaster of a match. I mean, that match it happened last weekend. I encourage, if you haven't seen it, to go back and check it out. So many fireworks going on. We're going to take a quick look at one game from that match, actually. And it's going to be a little bit unusual. Most of these highlight clips have focused on the spy side, how these players behave as spy, but I wanted to take this opportunity just to talk about both of these players' snipers for just a minute. Now, to set the stage for this particular game, this is Game 5 of this match, and Rav is down 0-4, fighting for his tournament life, with Opie Wrights having swept the first 4 games. Now, as we get into this game, Opie Wrights on the spy side, me playing as Wheels. We're going to speed through some of this game. Of course, Opie Wrights coming in with the flirt, going over here, going to be finish off flirt again really quickly. And Rav has been playing this game very solidly. Is not zooming around, not looking for lots of weird behavioral things. But look at this. We see this first low light onto Smallman after the highlight. Rav saying, you know what, I need to take some risks. I need to acknowledge that this is not an Opie Wrights kind of play, and Rav really demonstrating, you know what, I kind of know what to expect from this opponent. Now look at this bug. This bug, very clean, but Rav staring it down a little bit. Now the question is, how much does Rav suspect this bug? And we're going to find out in just a moment. But look at this playstyle, not giving anything up, not trying to sell out anything, playing a very standard game. Okay, now here comes Opie Wrights into statues, but look at all of this again. We have this leave from Red Dress not taking a bug, getting a couple bounces off the ambassador. That's enough for another low light. Look how much this party has been narrowed down by Rav, who's saying, you know what, I'm not just going to camp this game out. I'm going to really take what I know about Opie Wrights and put it to use. Now, Opie Wrights just rolls away from this statue over to painting pad. Going to stay here for a while, go to the other painting pad, and it's going to head in for this statue. And Rav is going to instantly take this shot. This is down 0-4 in the semifinals match of SMC. And Opie Wrights has 2 missions done. And Rav has to know this. There is no way that Rav's mission count has Opie up to 4. But even playing behind 0-4, Rav is willing to take this shot when he decides he knows who the spy is. And that's the kind of play that we don't necessarily always associate, I think, with Rav Sniper. I think people have this idea in their head that Rav Sniper is just super camp it out, get the mission count, find the shot, take the shot, move on to the next game. And it's not always like that. The lowlights we see taken in this game onto Smallman and onto Red Dress, the The shot we see onto wheels very aggressively before missions could possibly be done, even if we have that bug, even if we assume OP has the flirt. And that is the kind of hybrid sniper I really hope we get to see today in the match against Nebula. Now, Nebula, of course, also someone who's had lots and lots of success in this game, champion of the Summer Cup that finished off just before SMC started. In groups, went 3-0 out of groups, 9-7 versus Legorv, 9-7 versus Rav, and 10-6 versus Lev. Fell in the semifinals match against Meteoric 9-11 in a brutal slog, just a drawn-out, knockdown, no-holds-barred match that happened last weekend. Again, if you haven't seen it, be sure to take a look. Now, again, people have talked a lot about Nebula's Spy. People have consistently rated Nebula's Spy as one of the very, very top in the game right now for how dynamic it is. But I also want to take this second just to highlight Nebula's Sniper. Now, this is a game from that semifinal match. Meteoric on Aquarium, again, the Spy wheels. Not always the easiest to find a shot on. So let's zoom through this. This is not going to be a long highlight, but it's one that I find really interesting. So Meteor goes to the statue, picks up a single inspect, goes straight to bar, picks up a delegate. Okay, all very normal so far. Now Nebula is a huge student of the game, as is Meteoric. Both of these players near the top of the leaderboard in terms of games and time played. Comes into this conversation with the delegate in pocket. Now look at this conversation entry. We are kind of right here, far away from both of these AIs. It's almost hard to tell who we're closer to in terms of this delegate. Now we're going to allow Twin to approach us, and Meteoric all the time is looking at this shark. Now Teal's going to go away. We're going to start moving here just a little bit to get into conversation behind Shark. And all the while, Nebula is just holding this laser, being aware of all this stuff that could be happening. Now, this conversation is just going to evaporate. Teal is gone. Sick is gone. Twin appears. Now, here comes the delegate. Nebula's going to have to focus all his attention on the drink. And meanwhile, as Meteoric starts moving, we see the list disappear. And what is Nebula looking for? Nebula's just trying to figure out how could this happen. Meanwhile, the bug happens behind Shark. And this is what I think makes Nebula's Sniper so strong, is look at what happens immediately after we see, okay, walking through the possibilities, Wheels is over here on the right-hand side of the venue. That's not where Wheels belongs. And the shot is taken. Very difficult to get something past a player like Nebula. Very difficult to find something that he hasn't seen before just because of how much he's played and how much experience he has. I think these longer sets, both of these players are going to be perfectly comfortable on. I don't think that's going to be an issue for either of them. But I think it's maybe time for us to turn to the draft and see exactly what it is these players will be playing on this, this best of 20, actually.
Yeah, pretty remarkable stuff. A great choice of clips there. I had the privilege of casting that second match, and it was pretty wild. We kept thinking that Spy was going to break through for Nebula, and it never quite did. And maybe it happens here in the bronze match instead. As you mentioned, here's the draft. It looks like first we're getting a ban of Balcony, followed by a ban of Redwoods. These are two of the most banned venues, so no big surprise there. After a restriction of Ballroom, I'm tempted to say that they've restricted SpyParty itself, but that actually means that they declined to restrict. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a decline to restrict.
Wow. I'm not sure how often we've seen that. Certainly not much, and I don't think we've seen it in any of the last few matches, at least, as we get higher and higher up. So could be mind games, or could just be, I'm fine with anything. Could be a flex. Anyway, Tayan doubled, Aquarium doubled, also venues that you often see banned, but instead they're doubled here. It shows you just how marginal this stuff is. A double of Ballroom, a double of Gallery, and then singles for Moderne and Library. Library have not seen much of as we've come down the stretch here in particular. It's usually just a sniper party, and nobody wants to commit themselves to that, I guess. But we might see it here today if this match goes long enough.
I'm quite excited to see quite a lot of occlusion venues to start up, at least.
Now, when you say you're excited to see them, you mean that in the ironic sense. There's a lot we won't be seeing.
Very much so. You know, you can always watch The Spy.
That's true. We'll have to use SpyCam for some of those. Absolutely. And I think, well, I hate to do this part, but I think we're just about ready for predictions, aren't we? We've got to put our butts on the line. Oh, I'm first too? Oh, of course I am. And here I was hoping it would be alphabetical rather than reverse alphabetical. Okay, well, I hate picking this one for obvious reasons at this level. The differences, as I just mentioned with the draft, are extremely marginal. But I will say that I think Meteoric's win over Nebula was a little more of a surprise than Rov's loss over Opie. A lot of people had Rov as the favorite of this entire tournament, very understandably. So I think I'm going to go Rov. Oh, and I think I'm going to say something around 11 to 8.
I think I'm going to possibly lean towards Nebula. I think Nebula's sniper, I mean, both snipers are so solid, and I think maybe Nebula just has a few more plays up his sleeve on Spy side, but I think it's going to be quite close. I'm going to say 11 to 9.
I can't believe you've done this to me.
You cast the deciding vote. We could all do it in secret ballot and reveal them all at once if that's helpful.
So, I mean, look, both of these players have had lots of success. I think for me, I am super focused on momentum in Spy Party. I think it is so important. Rav had an absolute historic stretch. I believe it was something like 48 straight matches or something without a loss in competitive Spy Party this year. But I think it's been Nebula ascendant and Rav who has been fading off of that very, very hot streak. So for me, I'm going to cast my vote on the momentum track, and I'm going to have to go with Nebula with a score of 11 to 8.
Oh boy, I'm all alone on an island here, as it turns out, which is a surprising thing to say when you're picking Rov after that win streak you just alluded to. But that just shows how good Nebula has been as well. I don't think any outcome here, other than something really lopsided in either direction, would surprise any of the three of us. But now we get to find out what actually takes place. Again, the difference between fourth and third is $100 all by itself, and some bragging rights, of course, as this is the biggest and most lucrative event in Spy Party's history. And we are just about to get ready here. We're going to start on Aquarium. It's going to be Nebula as White Dress. In 3, 2, 1, planet.
I'm very intrigued at this ambassador choice. I think Smallman is one of the less common ambassadors to pick.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, we've talked about this before, the bug ends up looking more like a clothesline sometimes with Smallman, but there are benefits to it, certainly. We take a very aggressive flirt early, Nebula does, and immediately walks out. That's the kind of thing that's becoming more and more popular. Opie writes, I want to say, kind of popularized that, but pretty much all of the best spies do it now until they get caught for it, and they very often don't. There's a green microfilm with the top half of our body, waist up, blocked by that shark. It's really not the real test of whether or not you get away with microfilm here, but it's an aggressive choice along with that aggressive flirt to start the game.
And we might be able to just catch our seduction target before they walk off to get a little bit... No!
Oh! So close. It's actually a red test. It's not a leave, and that is with the normal ambassador right there. Taft says, no thank you. I prefer to be the ambassador. I'm not interested. We're going to follow them all the way over, and here's the question. Are we actually going to aggressively flirt and microfilm after doing those same two things to start the game just a moment ago? Here comes the shark, too. It's very suspicious, but the timing's pretty good. The flirt is going to be green, 85%. We're going to start the microfilm before the shark covers us. The hand is clearly visible. It's going to be interesting to see if Nebula shoots right afterwards here. They certainly could, or they might wait for confirmation because there's no way they're going to suspect that mission count this early in the game, but that happened just a little too early.
A little bit too early. It doesn't seem like there was much reaction from Sniper, but I think we can expect that from Rob's Sniper these days. And of course, on replays, the shark can be very slightly desynced from where it was in the live game. Nebula seems to be in quite a rushy mood today.
Yeah, very much so. I like it. I like coming out swinging and putting that kind of aggression, although amusing to pick a slow spy while you're rushing. And we get a little hint as to how they hope to complete here. When they complete something like microfilm early on, you wonder, is it going to be statueless or is it going to be silent? Or maybe even both, although that's pretty rare. And we kind of get our answer here. It's probably going to be statues completed, even though that is a major tunneling point for the sniper to be able to narrow that down to people who've completed inspects because it requires 2 visits.
Especially a little risky if we're going to do something like a bar purloin. If we send the purloin and then we're suspiciously at statues when that gets taken, it feels like such a classic spy finish.
Yeah, it absolutely does. The conversations are quite full here. This is a very good time to head into them and contact or fake contact and delegate maybe all in a row. We are next to a few different highlights here, although closest to a low light. Well, let's see, actually. Ponytail joins us right afterwards. I'm not sure who this is going to get delegated to, but you want to do it pretty soon when you're this far away from the bar. If 1 or 2 people beat your target to the bar, they can end up waiting in line, and the delegate will expire. We do finish the seduce, though. 100% on that. Microfilm done. Inspect. Delegate could do this, but we're waiting a little while. No one's at bar yet. We've gotten a little lucky here. There's 1 minute left. I think we're trying to hit this right near the timer, but if we're going to do that, we have to delegate soon. Within the next 5 or 10 seconds even, I would say. No, we're just going to leave. I think we've thought better against it here. We're going to join the conversation with the double agent, get that third mission, and I think inspect.
I think I like the idea of a soft tail via contact rather than finishing inspects or sending this purloin, but looks... Wow, okay. That was quite an aggressive bug. Behind Shark, it's just doesn't take.
Just doesn't take. And remember, when you're behind Shark, if you are confident that you're fully covered by the Shark, you might as well go out of your way and do the obvious bug and make sure it takes, even if you have to leave the conversation and come back. We're going to do a white test banana bread. It does take. That gets us to 3 missions, though, and here come the lowlights, and with only 12 seconds left, I don't see how we can finish. Statues will put us into overtime. We don't want that, and the Ambassador cannot really be bugged here. I think we're going to make a beeline for them. Here's that Smallman Ambassador you mentioned earlier. It is super visible. It is right on screen. Rob takes the shot. He cannot be approaching the Ambassador like that at the end of an aquarium game. This is what we saw in the semifinal match against Meteoric. Great spy play that had to rush at the end, and it cost them.
Yeah, I think the pacing was so on point for the first half of that game, and then we just had a few too many options and didn't end up really taking any of them to finish.
Yeah, that one bug attempt that you mentioned, I think that was clearly their best option. But again, this is an absolute carbon copy of 4 or 5 of the spy games we saw in the semifinals against Meteoric. A lot of very good spy games that just didn't quite come together. Too much time between events and then a little bit of a rush at the end when the party doesn't line up. And that's the thing, when you do try to space things out like that, you are at the party's mercy, and the party can be merciless. That is 1-0 Rav, who is now spying as Red Dress on that self-same aquarium in 3, 2, 1, playing it. I think Rav a little less likely to have pacing issues, a little more likely to have the opposite problem, perhaps being very aggressive, and this is the venue for it. They're going to join with their seduction target right away, just like the previous game, but we are going to wait a few seconds before talking. This is what Screwloose likes to call the standard spy wait, between 3 and 7 seconds after joining a conversation. And it turns out you can afford to wait because the first test is green, 51%.
Rob's been having quite good luck in recent matches with managing to 2-flirt, which definitely helps. Nebula's taking a lot of speculative lowlights, which is interesting to see. If you can narrow down the party by 3 or 4 people within the first 30 seconds, that definitely helps with keeping it down later. And we're already up to 5 lowlights.
Wow, very aggressive indeed, although I mentioned earlier that a lot of these top spies are aggressively flirting at the beginning of these games, and if that's the plan, if they're just saying, I think they're going to flirt, or at least they're not going to waste the first 10 or 15 seconds, well, then maybe it's strategy and not just, luck. Either way, it is right so far. We wait around for that potential 2-flirt that you mentioned. Unfortunately, the action test is white, and we're at that familiar sad number, 85%, which will put a little damper on any rush plans Rav might have had.
It's a little unfortunate, especially since now we've used the first minute 15 of this game. I expect we kind of need to start doing some other missions here.
We probably will, yeah. And we decide not to wait around and finish the flirt all at once. It's not like Gallery. You don't have to take every opportunity you can with your seduction target in the same conversation circle or pad. We're going to go to the back statue here now, get some boring inspects in. Bar highlights coming out for Nebula, but very interestingly, not bumping up lowlights when they go to bar. Very often you take those speculative lowlights, they get bumped back up when they visit statues, when they visit bar, whatever you're using to determine your highlights. Sometimes one, sometimes either, sometimes any. But in this case, seems very confident. Those lowlights are sticking, and that's not necessarily something I would have guessed.
Rolf, interestingly, going to statues, it seems like higher level spies have been a little bit nervous about earlier statues recently. And it's interesting to see that starting to be counterplayed here.
I think you've absolutely got it right. We see 2 spies doing it here in the first game, and it might be that, yes, Top spies are eschewing statues so often that it's become profitable once again. There's another lowlight, by the way. Poor Rav. We're up to 7 now, I think it is, total, for purely speculative reasons. No contact has gone off if you're joining us late with 7 lowlights. No contact at all. No time ad. No talk. Nothing like that. Rav going to go to bar here. A little under 90 seconds left. We're going to delegate, of course. You wouldn't want to direct right here. Wouldn't make sense. We do get highlight for that. And when you look at the highlights, and you look at the lowlights, and you look at the mission completes, and you look at the clock, things are not looking good for Rav.
Yeah, this would be really great progress if we had an extra minute on the clock, but now, especially with a drink in hand, it's going to be a while before we can go and finish statues. It's going to be harder to find a print. We've at least got Seduce done, but we've got 2 half missions and a minute to get another full mission as well.
I mean, obviously, when you have these half missions, you can complete a lot of things very quickly. You get a fingerprintable statue, and it's not the same set you've already been to. Boom, boom, 2 missions done. But with 45 seconds left, as I mentioned in the previous game, you are at the party's mercy. That's not how you want to be if you can help it. We are still sipping this drink. There's not much time left. There's the delegate to seek. The ambassador leaves at the same time. You really got to hope they go to a statue, but even that's going to be close. They do not go to a statue. There are only going to be so many ways to finish here. I think you need to time out sooner rather than later. Rob says no, statues instead, and we are immediately shot just for that. Obviously tracking the inspects, the bar, and that fingerprint.
I think Nebula was also aware there that Rov was entirely off screen while taking quite a suspicious bug path somewhat behind Shark, which could have also helped prompt that shot.
Yeah, and didn't even get the bug for their trouble. That's 2 failed bug attempts on Aquarium, and unsurprisingly, 2 sniper victories as a result. No big surprise so far with snipers taking the first 2 games here on Aquarium, but we've got 2 more Aquarium games to go. This time it's going to be Nebula on the spy again, playing as Walt Disney, Andrew Ryan, whatever you like to call him, in 3, 2, 1, playing it. What do you like to call him?
I've been calling him Bond in my head because that's 1 syllable and easier to remember.
That's what us casters prioritize. Forget descriptive names, just whatever's easiest to say. My God, we only have so many words in. Let's not waste them on spy, non-canonical names. Here we go. Look at this. 3 games, 3 early flirts for the spies. This one quite aggressive. It's only a white test, 34%. Might as well pick up a delegate for the Purloin while we're at it. I don't know if we want to go for it or not, though, but we are going to waste a little time at this window to kind of counteract that early buzz of activity.
I think that's quite sensible. We could even time ad here, somewhat behind Shark. I'm not sure if we're going to be intending on using this delegate. If we sent it off this early, it would give Rov quite a lot of time to figure it out and narrow down the party while we still have to do all our other missions.
Yeah, you take it either way. The only reason not to take it is just that you're worried about a misclick at some point when you're in conversation, I guess, and spies at this level are not. Who are we going to delegate to? Neither person. It was very hard to tell who we were closer to. Kind of makes for an interesting 50-50 or 1 out of 3, depending on how you look at it and what the sniper actually sees, but we get the heck out of there. We do get close to our seduction target again because we can't 2-flirt. Might as well have that space, and oh no, the seduction target, who's taffed again, by the way, leaves this time. It's not a red test. This time they just straight up leave, and so does Kane. That's for a reason. That's because we delegated to them. I think we're going to be cutting this a little bit close, though.
There it goes. It's expired.
Yep.
I'm a little bit interested about our positioning in the first conversation earlier. It looked like we were almost lining up to delegate from there. What a bug!
Oh, man. Semi-exposed, and this is what's significant, too. The ambassador walked by us. We were there for a while. We could not have predicted it. It's totally passive, and to whatever degree the sniper, Rob in this case, wants to credit a possible bug, they might also be crediting the fact that if that spy did get that bug, it was dumb luck on the timing a little bit, pure opportunism, but that does happen. You're going to be a little less likely to credit those insofar as you're aware. Here comes the contact. It's going to be a white test, just like last time. We are left afterwards. It's a fake. 34% on the seduce. We do have the bug and 2 minutes left. This could get messy very, very quickly. We are joining our ambassador, who is Smallman again, at bar. We're going to get a fingerprint here. We're not going to stand next to them because we already have the bug and we don't want to be anywhere near them, except for those sweet, sweet fingerprints. And here comes the first one.
Except that I'm not sure that it will happen because Smallman rejected that drink.
Oh, that's very bad timing as well. We're going to fake a delegate instead. We're just going to straight up Purloin, I think, behind the Shark. Are we going to try to gulp this and get out of there? What's the plan here? We join with the seduction target and the double agent. We can make progress on multiple missions here. Let's try this again. Here's the contact. It's white again. We are clearly visible on screen talking. We don't have one of those dreaded lowlights, though. Highlights, rather. And 3 of the existing highlights get knocked out with that contact. Could not have been timed timed worse. And look at this, 2 highlights for real, and this is way narrowed down, but we have a minute left and we only need 2 flirts. We're gonna have to get shot 4 talks. There's another white test, 68%. We have time to wait for the timer flirt if the seduction target Tap does not leave again, which he does. I was going to say we could just stay here and win. Little camera shake from Nebula, who I think understands that this is the kind of way they could still lose this game, but the flirt cooldown has expired already. Seduction target comes right back, I think. Yes, they do. Is this close enough for a white test? We're gonna find out in just a few seconds. 37 seconds left. Nebula trying not to rush and act too excited. Ambassador being guarded. There's the seduce. It's going down. The clock is 5 seconds. I don't see any shot coming off here. 25 seconds left. Taft giveth and Taft taketh away. And Nebula walks away with an early spy win.
I think the Ambassador choosing to stand right next to us with shark cover at the end there could have been our undoing. Luckily for us, Rov was on top of the fact we didn't bug there. We definitely didn't bug there, we just bugged earlier.
That's right, which is why it was actually a mix of really good luck and really bad luck simultaneously, and you can see Rov guarding that potential bug at the end quite a bit, very nervous. I mentioned earlier you don't want to be at the party's mercy, and that's true. However, the party gave the spy 2 gifts there, and they unwrapped both of them right away, and it leads to a spy win early. That's a big one for Nebula. Now Rov trying to bring it right back, playing as Salmon in 3, 2, 1, playing it one more game, and then we can get the heck out of Aquarium, where it's very hard to tell what a sniper can and can't see sometimes. Rov is going to decide not to rush the seduce this time because there is already a person next to them at bookshelves, and we've been maybe doing a little bit too much of that. We're instead going to finish this drink that we've started with, and we're going to go right into back statues. And that will affect, kind of funnel our actions, I think, for the rest of the game, picking up that early statue visit.
It's so interesting to see spies returning back to what used to be very standard spy play, going straight into statues when our ST isn't available to be flirted with. I'm also intrigued to note that Nebula was going to highlight Plane Twin as the twin highlight, but instead decided to go for the slight statistical advantage and highlight Bling Twin.
A little shinier anyway with all the jewelry. There is that flirt. It's 51%. That's going to make up for lost time. So we don't have the early flirt, but we make up for it with an action test. But again, it's not worth very much unless you hit that second one. That's the real question. Can you do it again? And do you want to waste 45 seconds potentially waiting for it? By the way, we don't have a highlight for that early statue visit. I think we've got bar highlights instead. Smallman, not the Ambassador this time. Of course, wasn't in Rov's earlier game either, but has decided not to follow suit. 2 inspects, half a seduce. Pretty straightforward early start here.
I'm also interested in, here comes the banana bread. Very nice, only 2 people out. In these spy picks here, I don't think Disney and Salmon are very commonly played in very high stakes matches like this.
No, they're not. There's that 2 flirt, by the way. You mentioned only 2 lowlights. That is pretty good. However, they were both at statues when it happened, so there's a little bit of a cost there. But the 2 flirt is done, and we could inspect swap with 2 minutes left. That is very, very tempting, I have to imagine. I mentioned Rob being a slightly more aggressive spy, and that if they hit those 2 flirts, it opens up those possibilities. But Rob choosing not to go for it yet. The whole advantage of that 2 flirt is being able to either pick your spot or do it early enough that the sniper is narrowing down rather than anything else. And oh my god! Rob shot nearly for approaching statues, doesn't even get their grubby little mitts on it to force the difficult shot that we were expecting there with 2 minutes left. Nebula with the early Softail flex shot.
That's quite an impressive shot there.
And it really is. And boy, those Nebula predictions looking sharp early on. Nebula looking sharp early on. Comes out of Aquarium up 3-1, and that was a particularly impressive shot. And now it is on to Tayen. Not quite the amount of occlusion that you'll get with the Shark. Very different in nature. A lot prettier, if you ask me, too. Rob sniping, Nebula spying as Duke in 3, 2, 1, playing it. Pretty straightforward Shoji setup here. Nothing too dramatic. As I always say, the main thing for the spy is you want the first and second ones to be on opposite sides, and after that, you kind of don't care too much what happens. That's what creates the weird little pathways, the bugways. There's an early flirt. It's 51%. It also creates a little difficult to see spots for purloins and whatnot. Nebula, after getting that flirt, gets the heck out of there very, very quickly. And here we go with the aggressive flirts again. And we join with our double agent right afterwards after some light bouncing. Smallman is the Ambassador again. This is clearly something Nebula is completely committed to. You mentioned something in your prediction about Nebula having more tricks up their sleeves. I don't know if this is the kind of thing you meant, though.
Not quite what I was thinking of, but I have to say, a Swarman on Taeyan as ambassador is significantly harder to guard when you can't even tell what part of the conversation he's in.
Yep, or if he's there at all, for that matter, sometimes. Yes, I think Smallman Ambassador on Taeyan makes a lot more sense than Aquarium. Aquarium, very often the bugs are coming behind Shark anyway, and so the size or the general stature of the Ambassador does not necessarily matter that much. But yes, the same seduction target as well. You wonder if this is even a slight troll. I know it's a third-place match, people, but as I mentioned, there's still a $100 difference, which for an early access game in a community-run tournament is substantial. So potentially memeing for $100 would be pretty gutty, but who am I to question? It's working so far for Nebula. The seduction target is going to go for that briefcase, so we don't have any more progress since that initial flirt because we have not been able to follow them into briefcase land, and we wouldn't want to. Here we go, one ambassador returning to another, basically. Let's see where they end up right afterwards. They join the conversation right next to the ambassador, so we're not going to be able to get close enough to two-flirt, I don't think. Instead, we're going to Purloin, and it's going to be a white test. And this is very heavily occluded, but it's going to be seen pretty quickly afterwards, I think. Rav clearly sees it, clearly highlights the spy, and we are clearly in big, big trouble.
Yeah, I think we did definitely need some mission progress at that point. The party really hadn't been giving us anything, and we hadn't been going out to get it. Just a little unfortunate, that white test.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much I'm planning for this to be green, which is not the safest plan to have, but look, against a good sniper, sometimes that's how it has to be. It's a contact coming up, and it's another white test on the contact. I don't think we've seen a single green one from either spy yet, which is very interesting. So they're already glowing, they're already suspected for the Purloin, and they're clearly talking during the contact. That's going to be 2.5 missions, but it's going to be really hard to imagine that we finish here. It's probably Civ shot or bust, and I'm going to put my money on bust.
When the party's down to 4 and we're one of the 2 highlights in the 4, it's not looking amazing. Our only chance possibly is to finish this flirt and try to get something done to dance behind the conversations, but I'm not quite sure what the plan is.
Well, it's going to be to finish the seduction first, and it's going to be a flirt before we pick up books, and that is it. We already saw this happen last week where someone was shot for flirting before the book pickup. I'm seeing spies do this more and more, and I'm also seeing getting punished more and more for it, and that's what happens here. Mostly going to be on that Purloin, of course, but Rav going to really drive that point home, bring it back to 3-2, and responding to a very good spy shot from Nebula with an maybe, let's not say equally good one from Rav, but clearly on top of everything, did not miss anything, and has a chance to tie it right back up, playing as Leopard. We are still on Taeyan in 3, 2, 1, playing it. And look at this, Shoji's across all the books. Generally speaking, in aggregate, the least favorable spy setup, if you ask me.
Except that recently, in some games, it's been interesting, the meta play, because those statues are entirely exposed and no one in their right mind would swap them. Some spies have been getting away with swaps.
That's how it works. The meta keeps turning round and doubles back on itself. And to your point earlier about Inspecs, Rav immediately goes to center statues and inspects all 3 of those very, very visible, very uncovered statues, and then immediately goes to another one just to try to earn back a little bit of the neutral suspicion they started the game with after immediately accruing so much at the statues. They are going to try, I think, to get a flirt in. No, they're going to kind of bounce off a very full conversation, and we are really trying to work off the calories from those inspects now.
I'm less sure that going to a second set of inspects after center inspects loses us that much heat. It almost looks like a spy that had a bunch of white tests and couldn't quite get through all our inspects at center inspects the first time.
A good point. We do basically an entire lap around that back conversation circle. I thought for sure we were going to try to get a seduce. Instead, we go to the shelf back here, and it's being watched pretty closely by Nebula, and why not? You had someone go to center statues immediately. They're high lit, and you got to watch for that little bit of occlusion there. The book goes back in without incident. We still have no seduce, but we might be about to change that. Let's see here. Can we squeeze in next to our seduction target? No, we're going to bounce off again. And Rob is going back to statues, apparently. The craftsmanship on these things, just too interesting.
It's a little bit brutal when your seduction target is in a packed conversation for the first 2 minutes of a game, so you can't flirt with them. At this point, what's the plan going to be? We definitely know we're high lit at this point. We're hoping to throw some of that off, but apart from flirt and contact, which might be getting dicey with 1:30 to go, what's our 4th mission going to be?
That's always the question, although you say 4th mission. How about, geez, we're still waiting for our 2nd and we have no flirt at all. Going to be very, very hard to get this done. And I think maybe after that kind of like bad luck with the early flirts, I wonder if the idea is just to kind of let it go. But no, we're going to keep our options open a little bit. That is going to be a flirt. It's going to be 41% and a green purloin right afterwards. That is behind Shoji. But I think you're going to need a little bit of a chain here to have some help because there are so few suspicious people. It is still going right there. I think Orange Sari might have been the rejector. Here comes another, potentially another. We are now part of a chain. The chain is getting longer. Offered to another highlight. And I don't think the fade's going to be visible. There's another reject. There's a contact. That gets us to 3 missions. 2 more flirts would do it, although I don't know if we're going to have time for that. Quite a long chain here. Are we going to take now? Are we going to take? We are. The purloin is not hit yet. We could be in the clear because you're not going to be able to tell green from white, I don't think here. There's a fake to cover another one. Oh boy, the sniper's laser's moving around. I think we're getting suspicious. 30 seconds left. 1 more flirt to go. There's the purloin. It comes all the way back around to green dress. The list is gone. The fade cannot be seen, as so often the case on Taeyeon. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Queen or Leopard? The laser is moving back and forth. Another person low lit. They're not going to shoot yet, though. We need 1 more flirt. 14 seconds. We're about to join. We're bumping into the ambassador. We do a full 360. We're right next to our seduction target. We talk immediately, then we stop talk. We're in the countdown. Seconds left. There's going to be no overtime, and I don't think there's going to be a shot either. Rav pulls it out somehow.
Oh, I was worried near the end there. That leave to windows and coming back to our seduction target might have just been what Nebula needed to take that shot, and it was so close.
It was so close, and clearly the win comes on the back of that purloin chain. We got 3 more rejects, including from a highlight, and then we took the list ourselves because the risk there is not so great because the sniper is very unlikely to get a clear look at the fade, which means they're not going to be able to suss out what happened, which means you're going to be 1 of 4, including another highlight. And when you are not sure who to shoot like that, the smart play generally is to do exactly what we saw there from Nebula, which is just to hold instead, rather than take what you think might be a 30% shot or a 25% shot or something like that. But in this case, Rav just gets it in without the overtime, just in time. If there'd been even a couple seconds of it, I think that would have been enough. Instead, we are all the way back. 3-all, still on Taeyeon. Nebula, Orange Sari, in 3, 2, 1, playing it. Great little rush there. We were talking about not having enough time to finish missions, but I didn't get to make the point I so often make on Taeyeon, which is that it has maybe the greatest mission density of any venue in the game, which means late rushes like that are not only possible, but plausible.
I think definitely the game helped us out a little that last game, but yes, being able to just dash across to a close window pad and back was probably what saved us there. And it's probably quite handy with Nebula being one of the slowest characters of the game now. We don't need to do too much walking here.
No, we walk right next to our ambassador, who is Smallman once again. And yes, this is definitely a meme. Taft is the seduction target again. Oh boy, if at any point Rob notices this, the match could turn very, very quickly, or at least they could be handed a free sniper win, but it hasn't happened yet. We are tied up, however. We're going to pick up a green book from the green bookshelf. That's how you know it goes there, by the way. It's all helpfully the exact same color with no discerning features otherwise. By the way, we have 0 mission progress, so we're going to head back to where our seduction target just was, but is no longer. And that means we're going to bounce off and be obligated to spend a few more seconds here at Windows. The view is very pretty, but we've got to get mission progress done, or we could white time ad like that to make up for lost progress.
A little bit unlucky with where we were on the clock, meaning that we had a beep shortly after, which might have drawn Rob's attention to this time ad, but time ads on Taeyeon aren't needed so often that snipers are necessarily guarding for them all the time.
Certainly true, and you're also right. You don't want the time ad to happen just after a beep or to lead to a beep just after that. You don't want to remind the sniper that the clock is even there, and right around the middle of the game is usually the time you can do that sort of thing. Are we going to bug the ambassador walking around them? No, we're going to take a path that looks suspicious, but we're going to trust that the sniper, Rob, is good enough to know we didn't bug. That's the kind of trust in the sniper you only see at high levels, but that is still being blocked by Kane, and that is still, I think, going to be credited either way.
Yeah, a little bit of a risky path, really, to take. We're back at green bookshelves. I'm not sure that we're going to be planning to transfer, though I'd love to see it. I think transfer is a bit of an underutilized mission on Taeyeon.
Joji setup isn't great for it, but at this point, there are only so many ways to finish this, I think, with no seducing, and a hard transfer is probably one of them. Amazingly, we're going to actually try to get a flirt in here. It's going to be a green test, and it's going to be before the pickup, and a white purloin at statues instead. A little bit of a snapback and immediately gulp, and Rob says, nah, that's not how that works. And a possibly promising, although slow developing game is snuffed out.
I think a green there, and we've got great progress and have quite a good chance at winning here, and just a little bit unlucky that Toby tempted us there.
Yeah, Toby is quite the temptress, and so many spies fall prey to that siren song of the guest list, and Rav now has regained the lead here, now up 4-3, spying as queen on Taeyen in 3, 2, 1, playing it. What a turnaround. 3 straight wins for Rav, and a chance for one more right here to come out of Taeyen with a significant lead going into what we're going to call halftime here in this first 2-11 bronze match. Rav is queen, as I mentioned, not rushing the flirt, as we've seen so often. We don't want to go to Windows and have General here, a weirdly age-appropriate seduction target, actually run out on us as soon as we start chatting to them. Instead, we're going to join this conversation and kind of just trust that that's where General's going to end up, and he absolutely does, though not right next to us. It's a green test, which gets us up over the crucial threshold we needed anyway. It's going to be 35%.
I think this is probably quite good against Nebula, who might be more aware of who we're flirting with. A little bit of an awkward path into that conversation, though, and I think that's something that might just push us up in Nebula's suspicion.
Yeah, we do have dueling seduction target memes now. Nebula's brand new to this match, and Rob's a bit of a throwback to the Joker about, I want to say about 3.5 years ago in SEL 5. I will not elaborate any further. I'll just say there's a history there. We get another Seduce in. This one is green. Gets us up to 86%, so we'll be able to complete that pretty easily. Are we being offered this drink? No, I don't think we are. It's the person next to us. It can be very hard to tell on tan, which is one of the reasons Purloin can be so potent. Looks like we're going to wait around a little bit longer here and try to finish this Seduce with a little under 2 minutes left on the clock. And that mission density that I mentioned, though, means there's still a lot of ways to finish.
Yeah, I'm, again, a little bit worried. We're down to 2 minutes. You know, unlike, was it Nebula, the last game, we've at least got some flirt done, but there's still 3 whole missions that need doing, and it starts to get scary when you're trying to do them all at once.
Yeah, certainly. But one of those missions is out of the way. We have fully seduced the General, just with mere anecdotes, apparently. Must be very, very charming. Seduce is done. 90 seconds. A lot of ways to finish. A lot of ways to get shot, too, though. Possibly more ways to get shot than to finish at this point, with so little time left on the clock, and not even partial progress across fingerprints or inspects or half a microfilm or anything. Not so much as a bug attempt, although there'll probably be plenty of opportunities for that still, even with just a little over a minute left. Here's Toby bouncing around the venue. We're going to pick up this briefcase, and we're going to bring it back to the Ambassador, and we're doing it just early enough that we still can conceivably finish this. I believe there's still a print on blue bookshelf. Let's see if we go right afterwards. Rob says no. We're going to join with the double agent instead. The Ambassador is going to go back to shelves, put that book back. There we go. Now it's waiting for us. We are marked suspicious. White test. That's 2 missions done. There was no fingerprint on that briefcase, by the way, either. Very interesting. I'm not really sure how we're going to finish now.
I think we thought there might be a difficult fingerprint, which would have lowered some suspicion, but there was in fact no fingerprint at all. And now we're heading into statues at spy o'clock of under a minute, and if we're going to try and finish statues, and I guess we have to swap it after that, I'm not sure.
There's the swap now. We're going to do the swap part first. It's going to be a green pending. We're clearly going to go right back to statues right afterwards to complete inspects in 2 visits. But with seconds ticking off the clock. No, we are not going to the statue yet. We're going to do a bug. We're going to stand there with the bug. We time it perfectly. The Ambassador obliges. A low light's going to pick it up, although it hardly matters behind the shoji. And it doesn't even matter. As soon as someone gets called over, as soon as that fake goes off, Rav takes the shot. And oh, wow. I'm sorry, Nebula takes the shot. Pardon me. We are all tied up heading into halftime. Wow.
Indeed we are, and I think we have a bit of a halftime break.
Just a little bit. I could use it after all that hype.
Yeah, so just taking a look at the start of this match, I mean, both players have managed to 3-1 their double, which I'm not going to say is standard. It's not something you can necessarily expect, but it's something that we definitely see a lot, and we have seen that it's very difficult to recover in these sets if you're not able to pick up 3 on your doubled venues. Now, of course, this is a best of 20, which means that we still have another set of doubled venues to go, which is the ballroom and gallery venues. But I think looking at the play we've seen so far, one thing that I'm very pleased to see is we haven't seen quite the same kind of timing issues that we've seen from Rav in other sets in this match. There have been some games that have come down kind of to the wire, but it doesn't have the same feel to it, I think. So that change up in Spy is great to see. I'm going to just pull up, I mean, there are a bunch of just classic moments in these games. I'm going to pull up one of them, though, that I thought was really worth watching. This is game 2. So this was Nebula's first sniper game, and we're just going to play through this at a little bit of a quick speed. I'm not really going to focus too much on the spy here. We're going to focus just on the sniper. There's a low light onto Boots. There's a low light onto Kane. There's a low light coming up onto Salmon. Here comes a low light on Twin. All of this has happened in the first 40 seconds of the game. And we have 4 non-cast lowlights that we've just taken as a result of people walking around Aquarium. Now, Nebula has a big reputation as a pathing sniper. I think it is one that is well earned. But I mean, look at this lowlight onto Salmon, for example. Coming off the top right statues, statue goes down. Here comes Salmon. And just that little turn as we head into the conversation is enough to earn that light. Now, if these players are watching replays, this is the kind of thing that you can become aware of that your opponent is doing. Right? And there's lots of those kinds of things. We saw them on one of the earlier matches against Opie Rights, where we were willing to take a low light on someone who's going to statues early, for example. The trouble is, it's really difficult to get out under the thumb of those pathing lowlights, because it's not just, oh, there's a tendency that my sniper is exploiting, and therefore I can try to change up that tendency. If that tendency is something which you just don't have the mechanical or game knowledge or skill to do, and there's not a lot you can really do. Now, looking at the venues that are coming up, we've got Ballroom, Gallery, Moderne, and Library. This is not Terrace, right? This is not a venue like High Rise. Like Moderne, Gallery, and Library, I think it's fair to say, are infamous, along with Aquarium, for some of the pathing shenanigans that can happen there. So I am very excited and very curious to see if we're going to continue to see these lights coming out of Nebula that were so effective on Aquarium and apply to some of these later venues. That's what I want to see. In terms of the changes the players can make, I mean, I would love to see just a mix-up in some of the missions that are attempted. You know, we saw transfer on Aquarium. Of course, transfer on Aquarium is going to arrive. We didn't see any attempts at transfer on Taeyen. We've seen some swap attempts, although none that have actually come off. So I just want to see more of a spread of missions. I think that would be a worthwhile change-up, and some rushes, frankly, because especially for Rav playing against Nebula, you don't want to give them any time to take advantage of all that pathing nonsense. You want to get the game going as fast as you can. But 4-4 coming out of the first set of doubles, still very much anyone's game as we head into what is effectively now just a best of 12.
Thank you so much, Corvus. I think your point is very well taken. Obviously, we call this halftime. It's not literally, and the players didn't take a break at halftime to play it, but this is, I think, the point in the match, around 8 games, where you're going to see people sort of mix up their initial game plans, if they were planning to at all. And yes, as you mentioned, you've got to be looking at those replays. You've got to be seeing the kind of lowlights that are being taken, and you either have to exploit them, or if you can't, as you also mentioned, you need to play differently, like rushing, so that that advantage is mitigated somewhat. We are resetting here. It is a tie. We're going right into Gallery instead. Look at this. It's Red Dress, Nebula spying in 3, 2, 1, playing it. This is, well, it's as close as it can be. We're still playing to 11, so someone's got to pull away at some point here. Hasn't happened yet, though. It looked like it was going to for a little while there. Rav came storming back after falling behind 3-1, but did not manage to close it out there at the end and maintain that advantage. Looks like a little bit of a seduce attempt here, sort of. Playing hard to get. We are faster than Smallman, so unfortunately, oh boy, we almost overtook our seduction target. Instead, we stopped just in time. We throw on the brakes even though we're wearing heels. And look at this, we're going to get that first flirt in, though. It's an acceptable percentage, not a particularly good one, though, but we'll take it after that little goose chase.
We've given up on the Smallman ambassador play, and we're now going for. It's sometimes been used, Pearls as ambassador, but I guess it's one use for Pearls on a venue where you don't want her as your seduction target because it takes her so long to get anywhere.
Speaking of so long, 2 time ads out front. I think 1 green and 1 white, if I saw correctly there. That is very, very cheeky. So we might have abandoned the whole ambassador troll, seduction troll thing that we saw before, but we've replaced it with Mimi time ads in the beginning of a gallery game. And yes, I mentioned that halftime was for us and not for the players, but Nebula treating it like a hard reset, abandoning the Smallman as ambassador, Taft as seduction target thing. It is not even the other way around. You've already pointed out White Dress is the ambassador. Very strange. The primary reason you would think to pick a slow ambassador like that would be for those behind-the-back bugs, either at paintings or more likely in that conversation circle out back. But you're betting a lot there to see if that even happens.
I think it's quite a reasonable speculative choice. I think basically the only bugs that have been getting past snipers on gallery have been the double walking bugs coming outside when the arm is entirely hidden, and Pearls is going to be much harder to time those, much easier to time those with.
Yeah, certainly true. Much harder to fingerprint, though. She is touching a lot of things. As I say that, she leaves statues to head for green bookshelf instead, leaving prints all over the place. Normally, that's the cost when you pick a slower ambassador, is they don't hit as many places, don't leave as many fingerprints. But how often are you completing fingerprints anyway? Not that often normally. We are still out front here. We are absolutely using those time ads. We sometimes see people go time ad into rush, which seems hilariously dissonant. But this time, Nebula spending every second that they earned with those time ads.
I think that's an underrated aspect of this. When it's first to 11, part of it is just who can keep the endurance up. And if you're going to make your opponent snipe an extra minute and a half of gallery, it's going to be much harder for them later in the set.
It's an excellent point. Endurance definitely a concern with these longer and longer matches, especially at the end of a long event and the end of a long season as well. That can absolutely be something that tests the sniper's resolve. Nebula standing across from their seduction target, who is Smallman, and that's going to bump us up to 51%, so not bad. We can still finish this in one more flirt with a close green. Not exactly where you want to be for this much time spent. On the other hand, we are taxing the sniper, as you mentioned. We're going to leave the conversation circle and join again right away after a brief bump. It's going to look valid enough, I guess, and that means we could finish the seduce here with, let's say, around 2 minutes left on the clock, which means that after all that idling, because of those time ads and because of maybe flirting right here, we might actually be on a decent pace, for gallery at least.
Unfortunately, It's not a green flirt, and we're going to have to 4-flirt this, which is pretty brutal for gallery. We might even want to head outside and do another time ad at this point.
The slowest ambassador in the world has left another print on another statue. I don't know exactly how the RNG works. Let's see if this still has a print or if it's down to difficult or not. I think it's just still on there. Here comes the inspect, 1. You want to cross from it, 2. And no print, either not taken or not there. I've lost track.
Hopefully we haven't got any credit for any possible difficult. Back into conversation to hopefully finally finish up this grueling flirt.
We only need 15%, which means if it takes it all, it's going to be good enough. And it does, and it's a green just for good measure. Didn't need it, but we're happy to have it. Seduce is done. Inspect's partially done. A little over a minute left, although the game has been much longer than that. It's been about 90 seconds longer than normal because of those 2 time ads, 1 white, 1 green. But we are also highlighted. Going to be very hard to finish here. We're offered a drink. Do we have to purloin now because of the situation we're in? We decide no, but the answer might actually have been yes.
Yes, I'm presuming Nebula has some kind of plan because we didn't take this contact. It was going to be a decent kind of contact, and we sort of rejected that possibility and have something else up our sleeve.
I would have thought the plan was more time ads, but we've joined this conversation instead. We're going to go for the briefcase. We're not going to get it, and we're not going to reset in time, I think, either. I'm not sure about that mechanically, but it is out front in gallery, which means it's not seen. There's a white time ad instead. Let's see. Any reaction here from Rav yet? Haven't seen any. We're going to go to this statue with our back to the sniper. There's not much time left. This will not be anything that gets us to mission win countdown either, so we cannot swap and hope the sniper has to take a difficult shot. They're looking for the swap anyway, so this is a lot of trouble right now, but that does get us to 2 missions completed.
Rob was in at the time, so we were entirely off screen. Whether he's noticed this time ad, to be honest, I think the white was better than a green at this point because we didn't have slow beeps.
There it is. There's the purloin. I figured it'd be contact purloin. It might be the other way around. It is a green purloin. A highlight is offered right next to us. There's the contact. Mission wins pending. The highlight also rejects. A low light is offered it and leaves. I think Leopard should be next. That would be at least a non-low light. No, Toby's going to move around here, offer to a cast member, and Rav is shaking the camera, does not like this chain, does not like it one little bit with the fake coming after the real contact. Here comes the Purloin, a low light takes it, it fades. Which highlight gets shot? We've only got a few seconds to decide. It's the right one. Rav susses it out. It's the start of the chain you want to break, not the middle.
It's quite impressive there at the end of such a brutally long game to have that narrowed down, and I presume that was just off mission count.
I think so. Maybe a little suspicion for the timeouts, although I tend to think Nebula got away with them almost completely there. Very interesting. We got the little bit of luck we needed, Nebula did, with a highlight next to us rejecting the drink after us. That's the most luck I think you can hope for in that situation. But starting the chain is always, at least well, almost always, to most snipers, the more suspicious thing than the person who keeps it going. Wow. Great tough shot from Rav, who has the lead here 5-4 and a chance to start pulling away on gallery in 3, 2, 1, playing it. That camera shake was actually kind of a good sign for Rav in a sense because it showed that they were on top of the situation. They were mad about the reject, but they understood the choice, which means they had time to think about their shot and contemplate their shot before they had to make it, and that might have helped them kind of unpack which shot was a little higher percentage than the other, the Purloin chain starter or the one in the middle. On the other hand, the one in the middle, and I've argued with people about this before, the one in the middle knows there's already a chain starting, whereas the person who starts it doesn't know if there's going to be any more. So you could argue it either way.
I think it's definitely far riskier to try and start the chain, but it's just hard to get that pointer spy. How often are you going to be lucky enough to be able to have Toby near you and see a reject and capitalize on that?
It's simultaneously riskier, but also more common, so it really depends on what your heuristic there is. I had this exact discussion with Kaylee after he shot me in SCL4 for this exact decision, by the way, on Courtyard, I think it was. I was twin, and it was Kane who rejected right after me, and it did not work the way I'd planned at all. Kind of funny how you can reach two equally reasonable decisions based on the same information for two totally different reasons. By the way, the reason I'm reminiscing about old times is because there's 3 minutes left on the clock, and we have 0 mission progress. The end, that's kind of the only way you're going to string those missions together almost always. Of course, inspect swap, always an option as well, but a very obvious one that snipers are very paranoid about already, and just having those 2 options for only 2 missions at the same time, other venues afford far more in the way of rush opportunity. We kind of bounce off the conversation. Our flirt's halfway done. Our seduction target's leaving. Let's see where they settle. They're going to go to green shelves, and I don't see how we can avoid going here to finish this right here and now. We missed the pad. Twitch forward in those showy saddle shoes. We do get the seduce done. It's green. We're at the green shelf, and I don't think that was seen, which is the only nice thing I can say right now about the state of this spy game.
Even then, our positioning wasn't what you could have asked for on Spy next to Queen there at bookshelves. Nebula's the type of person who's going to notice that kind of thing. We just put the book back innocently, no chance of mission progress there, and an extra minute and a half on this game would be very useful right now.
You have to go timeout, I think, right now, or you're just banking on a SIF shot. There are several highlights, which does speak well of those opportunities, but probably not well enough. It's a pretty low percentage play. Maybe you get a Purloin chain going and hope you get a SIF shot, but you're running low on time for that because it won't force overtime. So you need to do something pretty much right now, and Rav is doing neither of the things we've outlined or some third thing. They're going to join in conversation again here, I think. No, they're going to bounce off a couple of things, and they're going to go, okay. I'm still waiting for them to land somewhere. Finally in conversation, near the back. That might explain things. It might be the old contact Purloin again, but with only 15 seconds left, I don't see what happens. You need to at least contact here. You need to at least try to bait a low percentage shot. It's going to be the Purloin before whatever contact there is. I don't understand that. So it's going to be a white test, then a contact. It's not going to force overtime. Oh my goodness, a bug! We crash bug at the very end! We crash bug at the very end! Did Nebula see it? Nebula somehow doesn't see it and shoots a sieve! What on earth?
That is definitely not the result I was expecting from that game. I was thinking that awkward not fitting into conversation and having to take a very weird path around there might just be enough to kill us. And yeah, if there's higher suspect people around, then I guess it's all fine.
Just a weird blind spot in the sniper's view on gallery. We have 3 missions done with 15 seconds left. We white Purloin, we contact, we run over to the ambassador, bug them, and immediately run back to our spot in nearly full view of the sniper. None of it is seen, and a highlight just in the general vicinity is shot instead. And Rav, I'm going to say, more because of the sniper than their own spy play, no offense to either, is up 6-4 now with a chance to start pulling away. This is an absolute gift. Christmas has come 6 weeks early. Let's see what Rav can do with that. Nebula on the spy, playing his ponytail in 3, 2, 1, playing it. And I can't believe it. All of a sudden, Nebula kind of needs a spy win here on gallery.
And I'm hoping for Nebula's sake that it's not going to be the same style of spy win as Rov just got. Though that crash bug at the end was probably one of the best crash bugs I've seen.
I mean, as far as last-second crash bugs go, I've definitely seen worse. But I have seen them is the main thing, and seeing them is the important part. And there was a little bit of occlusion, to be fair to the sniper, but still a very surprising outcome. I think no one more surprised than Rav that worked.
Nebula here, having very nicely managed to figure out where our seduction target was going to land and just happened to stand next to them. But
that is lucky indeed, but it's only a white test, unfortunately, 34%. But you'll take it, right? It's gallery.
We'll take it, but I hope we're not going to fall into the same trap as Rov from earlier and continues to stand here for another minute and a half.
Don't fall into the same trap. Don't fall in love with your seduction target. You're on a job. You're a spy. It's all business. We are thinking about following them to green shells, but we haven't done it yet, which means we're not going to because now it's too risky. Sure enough, Leopard, rewards our patience and trust in them. Let the bird go, and if it comes back, it's yours. And this bird absolutely is. 85%. That's green test on the second one. And wow, sometimes seduce on gallery, who knows? It's just easy, right?
So sometimes the first seduce goes quite well and they're willing to come back to you. Nebula going to take a not entirely innocent drink. I think this has a print on it.
It is a difficult print, but we fail the action test. I like it. It's a good option. If you hit it early in the game like this, it can inform the rest of your play. I think a very smart risk there from Nebula. Probably not too much suspicion. Definitely worth whatever suspicion accrued on us for it. We're going to hang around here anyway. We're going to take another drink before finishing the seduction. That seems about right. A few more seconds before that cooldown timer. There it is. And the flirt is done with 2 minutes left on the clock on gallery. I don't get to say that very much. Ooh, a bug right afterwards, too. A bug right as we leave the conversation. The typical Ambassador Taft, which we have again now, is very, very vulnerable, very, very bugged, and a highlight comes out afterwards, but it's as we approach statue, so it might just be for that.
Well, and I think even though that was the world's...
I'm sorry to cut you off. There's a green swap as well. As soon as you want to make a brilliant, insightful point, I'm sorry, the spy interrupts you with another hard tell.
That was certainly not the action I was expecting there. I can't see how we're not credited with that bug, that it was the world's biggest bug path, and yet now we're in mission win pending and no shots been taken.
Contact, then a fake contact. The swap is still going here, and oh my goodness, the fade is seen, and Rav is all over it. A quick snapshot, and wins against a very good spy game. Nebula comes back with a very strong spy effort after that difficult sniper loss, but Rav is more than the match for it and is now up 7-4.
I think that's very good discipline there, not being distracted by taking lowlights at all and taking time out to watch that swap fade.
Exactly right. That is exactly what you're counting on, that early in the gallery game, that early flirt finish. We did, I think, the right thing Nebula did there, saying, hey, I finished flirt so early on gallery, let's put the pressure on the sniper. Nobody finishes flirt this early on gallery. Nobody finishes this early in general. If I'm not a big suspect for that bug, this is going to be a very tough shot to take for Rov. But Rov does indeed take it. Maybe more suspicious of that bug than you and I thought in the moment. Whatever it is, though, it's the kind of Rov we're used to seeing. And now, a chance to really pull away here. Already up 3 games, but they are on the spy side, and they are playing as wheels. In 3, 2, 1, playing it. And it's Taft as seduction target again.
Wheels very much a slightly budget smallman, and especially good value for the budget on gallery, where we can tuck in behind that back conversation quite easily.
Rov is going to go right by the ambassador, but it's super, super visible, and we are not going to bug. Are we going to go out front instead to get... oh, look at this! Nebula taking those lowlights that you referenced, taking those lowlights that Corvus talked about at halftime. Not a lot of penalty happening. There's another one that is 2 in the early going already, and you got to imagine there's going to be more soon. This has not been punished yet, but if you're Rov, here's the thing. You've already got your lead. You don't need spy wins. They just make it that much harder for Nebula to come back.
And yet again, we've burned down a decent amount of this clock without really achieving all that much. We can't stay forever looking... I say we can't stay forever looking at this painting. We can reposition very slightly and get near enough to our seduction target for a 51% flirt while still gazing at this very inspiring yellow painting.
Very abstract, let's just say. Yeah, I just assume there's some kind of magic eye going on there that I haven't been able to see. There's got to be something far more intricate that my Luddite eyes cannot perceive. As you said, got that flirt in. It is the highest possible percentage, 51%. But the seduction target goes outside and we stay in. We are very, very far from them. So the value of that green test goes way down. Oh no, it's a white purloin, and this is actually pretty darn on screen for a purloin in the back. On screen enough that Nebula takes the shot quite easily and averts potential disaster midway through this match. Still only down 2 now. That was all upside for Rov. Might as well take a chance with this kind of lead. But now, if they lose one more sniper game, suddenly they're right back up against it. We're heading into Ballroom next. It's going to be Red Dress, Nebula, in 3, 2, 1, playing. And I think at least the 3rd time we've seen Red Dress in this match.
Yes, Red Dress, especially on Ballroom, blends into the scenery well, as just, you know, good enough at everything to be worthwhile.
Absolutely. Good, solid, all-around spy, good walking bug, and as you said, does blend in with all that rich mahogany in the background a little, the red and the brown, pretty close, certainly, for anyone. And also a common issue of color blindness, the distinction between red and brown, so why not? We have joined next to our ambassador here. We are finishing our drink. We could bug. Our hand was free the whole time, and now the other one's free as well. We have not got that early aggressive flirt in, which we've been seeing all match. This could be one of those second half adjustments that we're waiting for. We request a drink from the waiter. Very surprising there. Very interesting. We're offered one, and we request it just in order to take a fingerprintable drink. And it is a difficult, and we hit it. Very interesting early in the game from Nebula, and now this could determine the course of the rest of this spy game.
As we try to immediately finish up Prince with that briefcase there, I think having hit that difficult might be really big here. I think Fingerprints hasn't been completed in any of these spy games yet.
No, a couple of attempts maybe, certainly. And yes, I love going for the difficult first. It's relatively low risk, more likely to be noticed as a fingerprint, I think, than in the middle or the end of the game. But you want that information, am I going to hit the difficult before you commit to finishing fingerprint? And if you do, you just assume you got away with it, and maybe it did, and maybe it didn't. But we could have time problems here. We do have one flirt in. It's only a white test, it's 34%. We have a chance to get another one here. We're going back to the exact same spot we flirted last time, I think, or certainly the same conversation. And it's going to be at least a 3 flirt. The seduction target's taking a drink. They could be about to leave, and we think the same thing in flirt just to be safe. It's a green test, 85%. The seduction target sticks around too. So we could finish this with a little over a minute left if we wanted, but no, we're not going to fall prey to that. We are going to head, I think, into center statues. We're going to finish this drink. We're making the decision now to kind of accrue that spin. No, we're going to gulp the drink and then leave. What on earth is this?
I don't know if we were just trying to kill time in a maybe less suspicious manner but we're going to chase down this flirt very hard, and I think at this point we kind of need that. We don't need to be trying to find our seduction target in the last 30 seconds of the game.
Yeah, it could be just trying to break up those flirts, and it does indeed do that. 1 minute left. Seduce is done. We have a difficult fingerprint, though. We're going to go try to finish that right now. We're racing Smallman, I think, for this briefcase. No, we're going to go around the briefcase. We figure we're not obligated to take it, or maybe not even allowed, with the Ambassador at green shelves, and who puts what book back in what order in the next few seconds could determine the outcome of this game. But we still have a long ways to go because we don't have the inspects, we don't have the contact. Here we go. The Ambassador puts the book back. We're going to pick up the briefcase as the Ambassador walks towards us, and we do a bug and a fingerprint right at the same time, and Rob says, absolutely not. I would have shot you for any one of those 3 things you just did in a row.
I think that bug is not nearly as bad as it could have been. I'm not sure if it was an action priority or intended. Either way, it's pretty slick, really.
It's not bad under the circumstances, but it does look like Rob is staring right at it. Maintains that 3-game lead, which is so huge. They only need 3 more, by the way, to clinch that 3rd place prize. A $100 difference between the two, and another chance to go up 4. Taft is not the Ambassador or the seduction target. They are indeed the spy, and it is Ballroom. It is Rob. In 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Nothing better than having some good speedy walking boots on for Ballroom.
Yep,
We're not going to use it for
you.
We're not going to use it for any good purpose, though. We're just going to chill in this very. So I'd call it useless, though. It's a little bit of an insult to the other people in here with us.
Well, they're just civilians. They're totally expendable to us fancy spies. They don't mean anything. They don't have an arrow over their heads. We don't really care about them, except insofar as they help distract from the shenanigans going on. So I think we can be pretty ruthless about it if we want to. Rahav, though, basically reaches the same conclusion as you, or the conclusion you didn't want to reach, which is these people are not worth my time. The Ambassador's being offered a drink right next to us, chance for a fingerprint right after this. The Ambassador is going to take it, and we're kind of in a natural position to be offered if we want to jump on it, but it would be a very aggressive, quick fingerprint. We're offered it naturally, I think. No, it's the suspected double agent next to us that offered it, and we bug as we leave instead. Do not go for the print. Is this visible at all? Let's take a look here.
I don't think so. I think there was just so much cover from Toby and the front conversation that we just got away with that entirely free.
We might have. It might be suspected, but Rob basically doing kind of the standard thing, which is I'm going to act like I got away with this bug, and I think I'm going to try to soft tail finish now in a reasonable amount of time. Here we go to center statues. There are the inspects, and I'm just going to dare you to shoot me for a suspected bug. You don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to do that when you're risking going down 4 games at this stage in the match. We do really want to 2-flirt, though, if we can. We're going to bounce off green dress, and she's going to leave anyway, and we're going to end up right next to our seduction target, who is Duke. And this first action test could determine whether or not we stick around or not to try to 2-flirt. Here we go. There's the flirt. It is a green, and now the temptation to stick around for that flirt has got to be quite high.
So presumably now that the finish is going to be try and finish this flirt in 2 and then call the double agent in the conversation. But especially if we're taking this drink, it's starting to narrow down our options. If the double agent doesn't end up in conversation, we've just limited where else we could go to finish missions.
And we can't rush bug to compensate for it. Our seduction target leaves, by the way, and comes not all the way right back. I don't think this is close enough for a green test. Rob might want to consider twitching. Instead, they're going to leave and just kind of come back. They're going to bounce off someone as an excuse to come right back slightly closer. Interesting maneuver. They think it's a little safer than twitch, perhaps, even with the cover of that pillar. The pillar does not cover our spy completely after all, and it's a white test anyway. After all that, it's 85%. We've still got a minute left, though, and we do have to be looking for that contact. The double agent is staring out the window, though. They're not going to be able to join our conversation because the SDA is in with us. The double agent joins in the conversation just 2 down from ours. We're going to let the Ambassador get the heck out of the way so we're not suspected of bugging them. We're going to bounce off Orange Sorry twice. We're going to join with the double agent. This is going to be that 3rd mission. How long are we going to wait? Because we have to flirt after it. Here we go. Any second now. 38 seconds. Flirt cooldown expired. We're just going to talk to start. And now it's a big risk because if the double agent leaves conversation, they might never come back in.
And this contact is going to be a little bit brutal when it comes off. There's so many people out of conversation that everyone's scattered out a little.
The double agent, it's a white test, and it goes on so long. It's the longer white test animation. The double agent themselves leaves. Oh my goodness. We do not get the 3rd mission. We join next to our seduction target. We're going to finish that, but now there's only 8 seconds left. We waited too long. We talked instead of contacted. We spaced it out too much, and now we are absolutely shot for it without even getting the mission.
Just shot for a flirt there at the end.
Oh.
That's another bit of a statement shot out of Nebula.
It absolutely is. It would have been a little more heartbreaking if the contact had come off and then that had happened, but I think If we take that contact immediately, it's a much tougher shot for Nebula. Oh boy, that is a rough one there indeed. We got a little bit of luck, then a little bit of bad luck, but you got to take those contacts when you can. Once you get around a minute left, there's a really good chance the double agent could bail on you and never give you another opportunity. Rov's still with a pretty significant lead this late, but if Nebula is going to come back, I think we're going to look back at this game in particular as the moment they were able to do so. The question is, can they follow it up with another spy win here? If they do, they'll be sniping for a tie. This would be an absolutely devastating loss for Rov if they can't stop the bleeding. Up 8-6, but Nebula's the spy. General, ballroom, 3, 2, 1, playing it. This might be the most important game of the match.
And we're gonna start it off with a good old cheese flirt. I think that was pretty well unnoticed. Everyone was quite spaced out in the party. There was a lot to take in those first few seconds of Sniper.
Yeah, people look for green purloins or bugs in the time of chaos, but flirts are not normally going to be prioritized. You're happy to maybe just concede those, although we got shot for a flirt in the previous game, so it can happen. We're going to green microfilm. Very gutsy from Nebula here in what I will not characterize as a must-win game, but we're getting awfully close to having to use that descriptor.
Again, I think it's good awareness from Nebula about the party. The ambassador was over the other side of the venue. There was a lot to do as we twitch to try and get a better flirt at this window.
And it's a white test, so we're not going to two-flirt. That would have been really interesting if we had hit it, but it's going to be a white instead, and a white time ad follows it. We are completely behind the pillar as this happens. We're going to do it twice, and there's almost 4 minutes left on the clock. We were not actually technically on screen, I think, for any of it, and now we can really pick our spots, and accordingly, Nebula says, I'm just going to kill a little time idling in this empty conversation with my new minute and a half.
Again, I think this is going to be another hard one for Rov to get through as we get longer and longer into the set.
Oh no, we are absolutely noticed for the time ads. Clearly, Rov is all over those time ads. Not going to get away with it again. And Rov maintains a 3-game lead. It is 9-6. Statement shots from both snipers in this match, certainly. Rov has the better end of it so far, though. Again, we are playing to 11. Rov is very, very close to winning bronze in the biggest tournament in SpyParty history to date. We are still on ballroom. It's going to be Rov sniping this time as Buns in 3, 2, 1, playing it. And this could be not officially the knockout punch, because again, we're playing to 11. But if Rov wins this, it's just about over. So Nebula absolutely up against the wall here.
Up against the wall, but again, with probably plenty of time to figure this party out. If he can get as many lowlights as he could earlier, then we might be okay. Rov just waiting and waiting to see if our seduction target is going to land anywhere useful.
I will remind you all that Nebula started 3-1 early in this venue, on their venue, I should say, rather, on their doubled venue, I think it was, which means Rov has won 8 of 11 games since. Probably not likely to be 9 out of 12 because they are spying, but that is a pretty good start in their favor. A 26% flirt and a difficult fingerprint early in the game, just like we were discussing in the previous.
And Rov trying this game plan that didn't quite work out for Nebula, getting that early difficult fingerprint off a drink. This is a much better start than we've been seeing some games.
Yep, and a little easier to kind of do things late if you want, if you're Rov. A little less issue running out of time on ballroom because it is like Tayan. When I said earlier that I thought Tayan had the most mission density of any venue, the only thing that gave me any pause was that I was also thinking of ballroom. I'll still take Tayan, but only just so. Ballroom, a lot of mission density in its own right. There's the flirt cooldown timer. We're going to sip our drink casually. There's 2 minutes left on the clock. Here comes that second flirt, I would think, any second now. Any second now. Any second. There it is. That one's a green. That's going to get us up 65%. And, ooh, that is a scary number for that third flirt.
I think, yes, we need to hit a green or into the sad world of 99% flirt later on. As it looks like we're just going to stack up on our soft-tail progress and wait for a good contact here. I'm a little worried that we're not working on some of the more difficult missions earlier on.
Yeah, a lot of ways to go here. It could just be lining up for a good bug, which we haven't seen yet. There's the green contact I've been talking about and waiting for. There have only been a handful, a lot of white contacts, and sometimes they've been very difficult. And oh boy, Nebula with the on-the-fly adjustment highlights for possible reel there with several people, and shoots Kane at blue bookshelves. Must be phantoming a green to blue, perhaps, hard transfer. But that is absolutely disastrous and puts Rav on match point.
I think Nebula, with a little bit of those god shots earlier, misses this time at the worst possible time, really.
Look at this. Kane splits after the contact. It looks exactly like I have a green book. I go halfway across the venue. I do a contact to distract, and then I dump in blue. Very, very spy move in a lot of ways if you're not sure where that book came from. And that is going to be really rough now. Nebula needing to win 4 consecutive games to push overtime in this bronze match. Rav needing to win just 1, and they get to start looking for their 1 necessary win in one of the first places you would choose to in that situation, which is sniping on Library. And Nebula brings out the big guns, so to speak. It's Smallman. 3, 2, 1, playing it. If you're going down small.
Sadly, Library isn't the best venue for maximum efficiency of the emergency Smallman. But
no, it's not. Yeah, there's the old saying, go big or go home. I might say go small and go home, which might be what happens if Rav wins this sniper game, as they are quite likely to do.
we're starting off very respectfully with a bit of an interesting combination. A very respectful distance flirt, and then immediately dumping them and moving on to some other progress.
Absolutely savage is the Smallman. We already knew that, but we're getting another taste of it right here. The cooldown is already expired because we just walked away. Still 4 minutes left on the clock. It feels very weird to be casting Library. I'm not sure I've cast a single Library game doing any of these SMC casts so far. We just have not seen it very often. Smallman walking all over the place and bouncing off all sorts of people and gets highlit, partially for being Smallman, partially for bumping into the Ambassador. Pick. Either one is a good enough reason by itself.
I do think that bouncing around the Ambassador is not quite the wisest thing to do when one is Smallman. And it's gonna hurt a little bit this time into an immediate watch check, which I think the first part of was on screen.
I think so. I'm surprised we only did 1. I can't believe I'm calling 1 time ad restraint, but in this match, it kind of feels like it. I think almost every time we've seen a time ad, there's been a second one right on its heels. After our time ad, we're going to go all the way to the far point of the venue, and Nebula, maybe they had different game plans, but after kind of bouncing off a bunch of people in the early going here, maybe they feel that highlight and say, I am going to have better luck elongating this Library game.
Nebula standing at this pad, requesting and twitching repeatedly. I'm not quite sure what the game was about Toby, but there were highlights of everyone at windows immediately after that time ad, and I think Nebula's in a bit of a rough spot here.
Is this going to be a quick swap? Yes, it is. We're going to do it behind Cowboy. We're going to hope we're off screen for it. We start to walk away, and then we go back. That is a total cheese swap. We walk back to the spot we already went to. The swappable statue, I think, might be on screen. Let's see if any lowlights come out. This is clearly Nebula saying, I'm down 4 games. It's on Library. I got to do something weird. I got to throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. We walk right by the briefcase. I think we might have been obligated to take it. And yes, Rob, between that and the swap, has it all figured out. An anticlimactic final game. And Rav, after going down 3-1, oh my God, goes 10-3 the rest of the way to take bronze. That is a $200 prize for Rav.
And I think Nebula, just a little bit late game, taken out by those time ads. Played very well, though, on Sniper, and I think at this level, a tiny bit either way is going to swing this match.
Yeah, absolutely. The final score, a little more lopsided than you're used to seeing, but we know it only takes a couple games here, a couple games there. And indeed, I was a couple games off. You guys put me on an island, but I feel a little better about it now, at least. Rav, I think maybe started a little slow, but rounded into the kind of shape we were probably expecting to see last week as well, which also, let me point out, started slow, down 4-0 to Opie. Did not come back that time, but nearly did. So this is something we've seen from Rav 2 matches in a row where they fall behind early and then outplay their opponent the rest of the way. First time it was not quite enough. This time it was more than enough.
I think that stamina is such a crucial thing in these very long sets.
I think you're right, and what we're seeing maybe is that Rav has a little more stamina than most of the other competitors. They are going to take third here. They are going to take $200. Nebula, on the other hand, tremendous tournament, obviously, to even get this far. This is the best of the best, and they're going to walk away with 100 for their trouble and can certainly hold their head high. Some very entertaining games, some very memey games. I'm not sure you'd see that anywhere other than the bronze match, but still a lot of high-level play as well. First of all, Scout, thank you so much for casting with me.
Thank you very much for having me along.
And Corvus, a tremendous job on the analyst desk. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to Rob, congratulations to Nebula for the 3rd and 4th place finishes. Great games, of course. To all the SMC competitors, I want to congratulate C-Rams, Scout, Puffk, Sauerkraut, Screwloose, Adafish, Lev, Grosh, Lazy Meteoric, Opie Wrights, Rob, Nebula, and Lagorb, all of whom have played some spectacular matches. But there is one left. We have one more match for you in SMC, and it is the Grand Finals between Opie Wrights and Meteoric, and it'll be taking place tomorrow right here on this channel. So tune in. It's in just about 21 and a half hours. The timestamp is in the Discord, of course, and it will be one of your classic Around the Worlds for the $1,000 top prize. For the upper seed assignment, automatically granted in SMC 2023. Both players, of course, have automatically qualified already. And I can't wait to see what these players bring. We'll be back here tomorrow, but thanks everyone for watching today. Scout and Track, of course, thanks so much for casting, and we'll see you all next time.